Today's Talk About It Tuesday question is, how effective are boycotts truly? Who is really hurt? All right, so we hear about boycotts here and there, but the most successful and most popular boycott probably in American history is the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, initiated by Rosa Parks being arrested for sitting in the front of the bus. And it really kicked off the civil rights movement, and it lasted 13 months and was successful in the sense that the Supreme Court declared that it was unconstitutional to have segregated transportation. So ever since then, people have been trying to use it as a tool, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. I know when I was in college, we boycotted Reeboks and all these other companies that were investing or doing business in South Africa during apartheid. And it wasn't the only tool. Obviously, they had, constant protest. They had violent revolt. They had economic sanctions from other countries. They had a cultural boycott that started in 1965. But I remember, when I was in college, I might have even been in grad school, 1989, it was a big thing. We were, boycotting. And in 1990, apartheid ended. So it did contribute. It was not the only factor in that. So again, the most successful and, most well-known boycott probably in American history was the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. So let's fast forward to the 21st century. So I went back a few years and I looked at the most recent boycotts and how effective, and I'm talking about large boycotts, because I think on a hyper-local level, no problem. If it's a small business and you decide, the people in your town or your city decide to boycott, it can be very effective. And the way a boycott works is that you refuse to do business with that, or you refuse to spend money with that business until they change certain policies. And again, on a hyper-local level, definitely can be impactful because it's based on whether there's a strong enough economic impact to make the company change, whether there is enough social cohesion around the cause to be big enough, whether that company is concerned about its reputation. Right, those are the big drivers as to whether or not a company is going to change. So let's fast forward to the 21st century and look at some of the larger boycotts and how they fared and what the outcomes were. So I wrote these down. So first one, I want to go back to 2016. So in 2016, I don't know if people remember, but in North Carolina, they had a boycott against North Carolina, against doing business in North Carolina because of the bathroom bill, right? And the bathroom bill allowed transgender people to use the bathroom of their how they identified, and you saw a major uproar. The NBA pulled out of there for the All-Star game. You saw entertainers, athletes, a whole bunch of people decide we're not doing business in North Carolina unless you change. And it was extremely impactful. And let me tell you how much North Carolina lost in revenue. Estimated $3.76 billion in revenue they lost. And as a result, they placed an immediate and they changed the law. So in 2017, they changed the law because of the financial pressure. So it was a successful boycott because you had these major players who could make a major impact on the economy of the entire city. So 2016 boycott was successful. Let's go to 2017. So 2017, Starbucks. There was a boycott against Starbucks for its hiring of refugees, and they decided they were going to hire 10,000 refugees in response to the big immigration rhetoric that was going on and the apparent, what they believed to be xenophobia And so they decided that they were going to have this policy of hiring 10,000 refugees. And there was a boycott of Starbucks. The problem with that, and that was unsuccessful, and they carried out what they said they were going to do, and it was unsuccessful because the people who were boycotting in general weren't customers of Starbucks, right? And so you're not really boycotting a place if you weren't really spending money at a place, right? So that's the interesting thing. The people who had the biggest issues with it would never buy a Starbucks cup of coffee anyway, and so it didn't really pose a threat to their reputation, to their customers, their normal demographic, and it didn't create an economic hardship for them at all. So that was an unsuccessful boycott. So let's go again, 2018. 2018, there was a huge boycott against Nike because Nike had supported Colin Kaepernick, the football player who knelt during the national anthem. And there was a big boycott, boycotting Nike, and people were actually burning their Nikes on social media. And it actually was a failed boycott because Nike, again, catered to a different demographic. So it was predominantly middle-aged white males who were boycotting Nike, but they didn't in general wear Nikes, right? They were the what's them big ugly sneakers with the wide, I forget the name of it, but they were a New Balance. They were the New Balance crew. The New Balance crew was not supporting Nike, so that one failed, and Nike actually made a significant increase in revenue, and their stock value went through the roof because they decided to cater to their younger demographic who was very supportive of Colin Kaepernick. So that one was a fail. Let's fast forward again. Let's go to 2020. There was a Facebook ad boycott, and it was about boycotting Facebook because of their inability or unwillingness to censor hate speech. And over 1,000 companies joined in the boycott, including Coca-Cola and Starbucks, right? They joined in the boycott. And there was a slight dip in revenue, and boom, their revenue skyrocketed, and then they made, I think, 22% more revenue that year that they were being boycotted because small businesses jumped in and filled up those slots. And so, again, because there wasn't this universal amongst their demographic recognition of the boycott and joining in, it did not work. Let's just do maybe one more. Let's go to 2023. This is a big one too. Back to the transgender thing. So Bud Light used a transgender model in one of their advertisements, and their demographic, who again, conservative, white males, middle-aged predominantly, were enraged that they used a transgender model for one of their ads. And there was a mass boycott, and people were pouring out their beer on social media, and and the company didn't handle it well, right? They tried to pull back, and then they caught hell from the LGBTQ community for not supporting the transgender, and so they got it from both ends. They were getting boycotted from two ends, and they did lose some revenue for a while, and then it stabilized because people have this brand loyalty. So on the slide, people started drinking, because they have actually a few different beers in their line. That's the company, but they actually own a few different beers. And people just started drinking the beer again, and the boycott lost its steam. So it was unsuccessful. So if we go back again from 2016 to 2023, we've had several major boycotts, and the companies were able to withstand the boycotts, and in some cases, we see in the majority of the cases, actually make more money because of the boycott than they did before. So we had really one, and that's the first one I talked about, in 2016, we had one boycott that really made a difference and changed policy, and the others kind of lost their steam and went away. So when you talk about these global businesses who have a very diverse group of products and services, and they have a global marketplace, it's hard. It's hard to make an economic impact on them enough to make them change. And a lot of times the groups that want them to change are not people who spend money with them anyway, so it makes no impact. You can't boycott something you don't use, right? A lot of people were saying, we're going to boycott. I remember there was a boycott of the NFL for a while, but the people who were boycotting the NFL never watched the games anyway, so it didn't matter. It didn't make an impact. So what we see now is it would seem like it would be easier because you can reach more people through social media. You can really find the people who support your ideas and ideologies to participate. But these companies oftentimes are so large that they can withstand the immediate impact, and they can outlast the boycotts, right? When we said, again, the hyperlocal boycott in 1955 Montgomery was 13 months long, and the company couldn't withstand that, right? But we're talking today, these boycotts last a couple of months at best, and then people forget about them, right? So I think that's a big difference. So can a boycott work? Theoretically, absolutely. Have we seen them work in the last several years successfully? No, they haven't. And who gets hurt? That's a good question. I don't know who, I guess, if it was successful, and we know people who the law supported in North Carolina that they repealed, they got hurt. Customers are without whatever, so it's a minor hardship but in the long run, nobody really gets hurt. It's just kind of a thing to do, and it just fades away. I think, we reach more people, it gets really big, but the attention span is short, and so it's very difficult for boycotts to work. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, on a local level, hyper-local level, absolutely can be very impactful. But please, I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about boycotts. Like, share, subscribe, keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.